You wake up, you check your phone, you get ready for work, you clock in, you clock out, and tomorrow you do it again. This is what a life looks like now. But for almost all of human history, none of this existed. No jobs, no careers, no resumes, no bosses, and the real answer to what people did instead is far stranger than you think. Here's the strange part. Your ancestors didn't work 8 hours a day. They didn't work 5 days a week. Anthropologist Marshall Salins studied hunter-gatherer societies and called them the original affluent society. Not because they had more stuff, because they had more time. Some groups spent only 15 to 20 hours a week getting food. The rest of the time was rest, talk, play, and sleep. Think about that. Less work than you do now. And this was normal for 200,000 years. So what filled the other hours? Not Netflix, not scrolling, something older and stranger. Connection, storytelling, long stretches of doing nothing at all. Picture the end of a gathering day. The food is shared, not hoarded. There's no manager checking who contributed more. An older woman tells a story she's told 100 times, and the children listen anyway because the story isn't really about the words. It's about the fire, the closeness, the sense that nobody in this circle is alone tonight. There was no performance review for that. There didn't need to be one. And this wasn't rare. It was the baseline. For nearly the entire span of human existence, this was simply what a normal Tuesday looked like. Let's go back, really back. Before farms, before cities, before money. Humans lived in small bands, usually 20 to 50 people. There was no boss. There was no manager assigning tasks. There was no idea of a job separate from life itself. You didn't go to work. Your life was the work, and the work was your life, all folded into one. A man might track an animal for 3 days. A woman might know the location of 40 different edible plants across a 10-mile radius. Children learned by watching, not by school, not by training programs. Everyone contributed based on what they were good at, and the group survived together, or not at all. There was no interview process for any of this. Nobody submitted an application to become the person who read animal tracks better than anyone else. That skill simply emerged, tested against real consequences over years of watching, failing, and trying again. If you were good at something, the group knew it, because your survival and theirs depended on knowing it. There was nowhere to hide incompetence, and there was no need to perform competence you didn't have. What you could do was simply visible, every single day. Here's the twist. This wasn't chaos. It was one of the most efficient systems humans have ever lived under. Anthropologist Richard Lee spent time with the Jew/Huanzi people of the Kalahari and documented something remarkable. Adults worked around 2 to 3 hours a day gathering food that fed the entire group. The rest of the day was leisure, talking, resting, making tools slowly, without rush. Compare that to now. You might work 9 hours, commute 2, and still feel behind. So, when did this change? Around 10,000 years ago. Agriculture arrived. And agriculture is where the modern idea of a job was actually born. Once you plant a field, you can't walk away from it. Once you own land, you have to defend it. Farming created surplus, and surplus created something humans had never needed before. Storage, ownership, debt. And once there was surplus grain sitting in a pile, someone had to guard it, someone had to count it, and someone had to decide who got how much. That's the moment a job was born. Not meaningful work, not purpose. A role, assigned to you, based on what the group above you needed done. Archaeologist James Scott called early agricultural states grain traps because once people settled into farming, they were locked in. You couldn't roam anymore. Your labor was tied to a fixed patch of land, and someone else could tax it, measure it, and take a share. Think about what that actually required. Someone needed a way to count how much grain existed. Someone needed a way to record who owed what. Some of the earliest writing systems ever discovered weren't poems or stories. They were inventories, lists of grain, lists of debts, lists of labor owed. The birth of the written word in many places is tangled up with the birth of the job. Before humans wrote down love or loss, they wrote down who owed who a bushel of barley. For the first time in human history, a person's worth started being measured by output, not by connection, not by skill in tracking or storytelling or healing, by how much you could produce and how well you obeyed a schedule that wasn't your own. Here's where your brain still lives in that older world, even now. Your stress response wasn't built for deadlines. It was built for immediate threats. A predator, a falling branch, a rival tribe. Short bursts of danger followed by long stretches of calm. Modern jobs flipped that completely. Now the stress doesn't spike and fade. It sits, quiet, constant low-grade pressure, 5 days a week, for decades. Psychologist Robert Sapolsky studied this exact mismatch. He found that humans are among the only animals that experience chronic stress from situations that aren't actually life-threatening. A zebra doesn't worry about next month's rent. But you do, and your body reacts almost the same way it would to a lion. That means your nervous system is still running ancient software, built for danger that ends, not for stress that never lets up. Your ancestors' heart rate spiked when a predator appeared. Then the predator left or was avoided, and the body settled back down within minutes. Fear had an ending. Now imagine an inbox that never actually empties, a boss whose expectations shift week to week, a job title that could disappear in a single meeting you weren't invited to. There's no clear ending. The threat doesn't resolve, so the body never fully stands down. It just keeps a low simmer of alert running in the background, day after day, and calls that simmer normal life. So why does this matter to you, scrolling through this right now on a break from your own job? Because the exhaustion you feel isn't weakness. It isn't a personal failure to manage your time better. It's a mismatch. Your body was designed for a life of short, intense effort, followed by real rest, not a life of low-grade pressure stretched across 40 hours a week for 40 years. Think about your ancestors again. 15 hours of effort. The rest, unclaimed, unscheduled. Theirs. You don't get that. Almost no one alive today does. And it's worth asking why we accepted a trade that our own bodies never agreed to. There's something else hidden in this history. Ancient humans didn't separate identity from contribution the way we do now. You weren't a job. You were a person who happened to track animals well, or knew which roots wouldn't poison the group, or could calm a crying child better than anyone else. Your value wasn't a title. It was simply what you added to people who knew you. Now you introduce yourself with your job title before your name finishes leaving your mouth. Ancient humans would find that strange. Not because work is bad, because work became the whole identity instead of one small part of a much bigger life. Imagine trying to explain a resume to someone from that world. A single sheet of paper meant to summarize your entire worth, judged by a stranger who has never watched you actually do anything. To them, this would sound less like a tool for opportunity and more like a strange ritual, one where your value gets compressed into bullet points before anyone has bothered to know you at all. Here's the reframe. The 8-hour workday wasn't handed down from nature. It wasn't chosen by your biology. It was built, recently, by industrial systems that needed predictable output from human bodies. Historian Juliet Shaw traced how the modern workweek was shaped less by what humans need and more by what factories needed to run efficiently. You didn't inherit this rhythm from your ancestors. You inherited it from machines. So the next time you feel guilty for being tired after a full day of sitting at a desk, remember this. For 200,000 years, humans rested more than they labored, and they survived just fine. The tiredness you feel isn't proof that you're falling behind. It's proof that your ancient body is still trying to live inside a very new and very unnatural cage. You wake up, you check your phone, you get ready for work. But somewhere underneath all of it, an older self is still there, one that never asked for a job and never needed one to know exactly who it was.